The Galactic Coalition was falling apart. For 300 years, the peace in the stars had been kept by the agreement of many alien races. But now, a great enemy called the Xyloth had come. The Xyloth were a race of giant insects. They had many legs, hard shells, and they wanted to eat everything in their path. They did not talk. They did not make peace. They just killed and ate. The Coalition ships were losing. The alien fleets used laser beams and energy shields. But the Xyloth ships were strong. They could take many hits. The lasers were not enough to stop them. The Xyloth moved from star to star, destroying planets and taking over space stations. The leaders of the galaxy were scared. They did not know what to do. In a big space station called Unity, the main leaders of the Coalition met. This station was near the center of the galaxy. It was a safe place, or it used to be. Now, the red warning lights flashed all the time. The room where the leaders met was dark and full of smoke. The big screen in the front showed a map of the galaxy. Every few minutes, more lights on the map turned from blue to red. Blue meant safe space. Red meant the enemy was there. Admiral Vance stood in front of the screen. He was an old man with white hair and a tired face. He wore a clean uniform, but it looked wrinkled now. He had not slept for days. He looked at the red dots getting closer to their position. "We cannot stop them," Vance said softly. His voice was full of sadness. Next to him stood General Mark. Mark was a big man with broad shoulders. He looked tired, too. He had dark circles under his eyes. He crossed his arms over his chest and shook his head. "The line at the Nebula Belt is gone," Mark said in a loud, deep voice. "I just got a message from the commander there. Their ships are destroyed. The soldiers are dead. We have nothing left to stop the Xyloth from coming here." The other aliens in the room looked at each other with fear. There was an Alari ambassador named Tylan. The Alari were tall, thin aliens with silver skin and big eyes. Tylan looked very pale. "If the Nebula Belt falls, the next target is the core worlds," Tylan said. His voice shook. "Our home planets are not ready for an attack. We have no army left. We will all be killed." "We have to run," another alien said. It was a Vorg, a small creature with fur. "We should take our ships and fly to the other side of the galaxy. Hide while we can." "No," Mark said sharply. "If we run, they will chase us. They are faster than us. They will hunt us down until there is no one left. We must make a stand here." Admiral Vance sighed. He put his hand on the table to steady himself. "But Mark, look at the numbers. We have 50 ships left. The Xyloth have thousands. How can 50 ships beat thousands? It is impossible." While the men and aliens argued, a young woman named Lisa was working at her computer. She sat in the back of the room. She was a communications officer. She wore a headset and listened to signals coming from deep space. Most of the signals were distress calls. People were screaming for help that would never come. It made Lisa sad, but she had to keep working. Suddenly, a new sound came through her headset. It was not a scream. It was not a normal distress signal. It was a loud, heavy noise. It sounded like thunder, but in space. Lisa looked at her screen. A bright green light was blinking. "Admiral?" Lisa said. She tried to speak loud, but her voice was quiet. Vance did not hear her. He was arguing with the Vorg ambassador. "Admiral Vance." Lisa said louder this time. Vance turned around. "What is it, Lisa? Can't you see we are busy?" "Sir, I am picking up a signal," Lisa said. She stood up. "It is coming from the edge of the sector, near the old mining belt." "A signal?" Mark asked. "Is it a rescue ship?" "No, sir," Lisa said. She looked at her screen closely. "It is a fleet. A huge fleet of ships just came out of warp speed." The room went silent. Everyone looked at Lisa. "A fleet?" Vance asked. "Is it the Xyloth? Are they attacking from behind?" "No, sir," Lisa said. "The ship designs do not match the Xyloth, and they're not attacking. They are sending a message." "What is the message?" Tylan asked. He stepped forward. "Is a new ally? Have the Draconians decided to help?" Lisa typed on her keyboard to translate the message. The computer worked for a few seconds. Then, words appeared on the main screen. The message was simple. It said, Asterisk, we are Earth. We have heard your call. We are here to fight. Asterisk, Earth. Vance said the word slowly. He had never heard of it. What is Earth? What star system is that? I do not know, sir, Lisa said. I am checking the database now. There is no record of a planet called Earth in our charts. General Mark walked over to Lisa's computer. He looked at the data. Look at the size of these ships, Lisa. How many are there? Lisa counted the dots on her radar screen. Her eyes went wide. Sir, there are 200 ships. No, 300. More are coming. 300. Mark said, that is more than we have. But will it be enough? Lisa looked at the detailed pictures coming from the long-range cameras. She felt confused. Sir, their ships look strange. Strange how? Vance asked. He walked over to look. They do not have energy shields, Lisa said. At least, I cannot see any shield signatures. And their hulls. They are made of simple metal. Thick metal, but primitive. They look like they are made for atmosphere, not space. Mark frowned. No shields? They will be destroyed in seconds. The Xyloth plasma will melt that metal. And look at their weapons, Lisa added. They are not using plasma or lasers. They have big guns, kinetic weapons. They use solid metal slugs. It is very old technology. Vance shook his head. This is a joke. Who are these people? They are coming to a space war with guns from history? They will get themselves killed. Just then, the speaker in the room crackled again. A deep voice came through. It was not a computer voice. It was a human voice. It sounded calm and rough. This is Captain John of the ship called Atlas. The voice said, to the aliens at Station Unity, we see your enemy. We are moving to attack. Do not get in our way. Mark looked at Vance. He is very confident. He is a fool, Vance said. Lisa sent a message back. Tell them to turn around. Tell them this is a suicide mission. We cannot watch them die. Lisa typed the message and sent it. A moment later, the reply came back. Captain John's voice boomed in the room again. Negative. We did not come all this way to leave. We have a score to settle. We fight our own wars. Just watch. On the main screen, the tactical map changed. The blue dots that represented the Xyloth fleet began to move. The Xyloth had sensed the new ships. They smelled fresh blood. They turned their massive swarm away from the station and headed straight for the human fleet. The aliens in the room gasped. The Xyloth were sending thousands of ships to destroy the humans. They are doomed, Tylan whispered. Look at the difference in numbers. The humans will be dead in 10 minutes. General Mark stared at the screen. He did not say anything. He watched the blue dots and the new green dots. The green dots did not move back. They did not form a defensive circle. They moved forward in a straight line. They were charging at the enemy. Who are these people? Mark asked again, mostly to himself. I am trying to find a match for their language, Lisa said. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. It is not a dialect we know. It sounds simple, direct. Wait, I found a partial match in some very old archives. It might be from a star system called Sol. It is very far away, on the other side of the galaxy. Sol. Vance rubbed his chin. I have not heard that name in a long time. Are they dangerous? We will see, Mark said. Lisa, put the visual feed on the main screen. I want to see how they die. Lisa pressed a button. The big map changed. Now, they could see the video from the telescope. It showed the black space, full of stars. And in the middle, the human fleet. The ships looked brutal. They were not beautiful like the Ilari ships. They were gray, blocky, and covered in pipes and antennas. They had huge engines at the back that glowed with bright blue fire. They looked like heavy beasts of burden. The Xyloth ships looked like black bugs with glowing eyes. They scuttled through space, ready to tear the humans apart. The distance between the two fleets closed quickly. The room was silent. The aliens held their breath. They expected to see the green dots vanish from the screen. Range closing, Lisa said quietly. 10 seconds. 5 seconds. Fire. The voice of Captain John came over the speaker, even though the sound could not travel in space. Suddenly, The side of the human ships lit up. Hundreds of hatches opened. Long metal barrels extended from the hulls. There was no glow of laser energy. Instead, there was a flash of fire and smoke. The humans were firing bullets. But these were not small bullets. They were massive shells, the size of cars. They shot out from the human ships at incredible speeds. The shells slammed into the Xyloff front line. Because the Xyloff ships relied on energy shields, the solid metal shells passed right through the energy fields. Shields stop energy and heat, but they do not always stop heavy, fast-moving metal. The Xyloff ships exploded. The shells tore through their hulls and hit their fuel chambers. Giant fireballs bloomed in the darkness. "Hit confirmed," Lisa said. She sounded surprised. The Xyloff shields did not stop the kinetic impact. Mark smiled a little bit. Primitive? Maybe, but effective. The Xyloff swarm reacted with anger. They fired their plasma beams. The green and purple beams washed over the human ships. The aliens in the room looked away, expecting the human ships to melt. But when they looked back, the human ships were still there. They were damaged. Some were on fire, but they were not destroyed. The thick metal armor had absorbed the heat. The paint burned off, leaving black scars, but the ships held together. "Their armor is thick," Mark said. "They sacrificed shield technology for heavy plating. They are tanking the hits." The battle had begun. The galaxy watched in shock as this new, unknown species threw themselves into fight. They did not fight like the Coalition. The Coalition fought with grace and tactics. The humans fought with brute force and loud explosions. And for the first time in a long time, the Xyloff were not winning. Vance looked at the screen, then at Mark. "I fear we may have unleashed something we do not understand," Vance said. Mark nodded. "Yes, but right now, Admiral, they are the only thing standing between us and death. Let them fight." The room was tense. The sound of explosions filled the speakers. The war was not over. In fact, it felt like it was just getting started. The fear of the Xyloff was slowly being replaced by a new fear. A fear of the people from Earth. The silence in the command center of the space station Unity was heavy. Everyone stared at the main screen with wide eyes. The battle outside was not going the way they expected. For 300 years, the galaxy had watched the Xyloff win. The insectoid aliens were unstoppable. Their ships were fast, their claws were sharp, and their plasma weapons melted through the strongest alloys used by the Coalition. But now, a new player was on the field. The humans. Admiral Vance stood with his hands clasped behind his back. He watched the green dots on the radar screen. They were moving fast. The human ships did not fly in the smooth, curved patterns that the Ilari or the Vorg used. They flew in straight lines, turning sharply and firing constantly. It looked clumsy to the trained eyes of the alien officers, yet it was working. "Their tactics are erratic," Tylan, the Ilari ambassador, whispered. He shook his head, his silver skin pale. "They are not maintaining formation. They are exposing their rear engines. It is suicide." General Mark stood next to the tactical map. His arms crossed over his chest. He had seen many battles, but he had never seen anything like this. "Look closer, Tylan. They are not exposed because they are careless. They are exposed because they know they can take a hit." On the screen, a Xyloff attack ship, a fast Stinger-class vessel, dived toward a human cruiser. The Stinger fired a bright green plasma beam. It struck the human ship right on the side. In a normal Coalition battle, that hit would have collapsed the shields and torn the ship in half. But this human ship was different. It did not have a shimmering blue shield bubble. When the plasma hit, the thick, gray metal armor of the ship turned red hot. It boiled and sparked, but it held. The beam pushed the ship sideways, but it did not break it apart. "Damage report on that ship?" Mark asked. Lisa, the communication officer, typed quickly on her console. She was reading the data streams from the human fleet. The ship is called the UWS Hercules. They report hull damage on Deck 4 and Deck 5. They say the armor is, a little warm, but they are still in the fight. "A little warm?" Mark repeated. He could not believe it. A plasma beam that melts starship steel just makes their armor warm? "It is very dense metal," Lisa explained. and they have layers of it. They use empty space and ceramic tiles between the metal layers to stop the heat. It is primitive technology, but it is very thick. They use more metal on one ship than we use on 3. Suddenly, the Hercules retaliated. It did not fire a laser. Instead, the side of the ship opened up and a massive metal cannon pushed out. With a flash that was visible even on the monitor, the cannon fired a projectile. It was not a beam of light. It was a solid slug, moving at 10 times the speed of sound. The slug smashed into the Xyloff Stinger. There was no fancy explosion of energy, just pure, crushing force. The Stinger's ship crumpled like a piece of paper. The slug went straight through the engines and out the other side. The Stinger spun out of control and exploded into a fireball. Kinetic killing, Vance muttered. They are hitting the enemy with rocks. Very big, very fast rocks. They are effective, Mark said. The Xyloff shields are designed to stop energy and radiation. They stop heat and light. But they cannot stop a solid object moving that fast. The humans are punching through their defenses. The battle raged on. The human fleet, led by the massive flagship Atlas, pushed deeper into the Xyloff swarm. The Atlas was the biggest ship they had. It was ugly, blocky, and covered in guns. On the bridge of the Atlas, Captain John stood like a statue. He wore a black uniform with a golden star on his chest. The bridge around him was noisy. Humans ran back and forth, carrying paper tablets and shouting orders. It was very different from the quiet, holographic bridges of the Coalition. "Tom, give me a firing solution on the big carrier," John said. His voice was calm, cutting through the noise. Tom, the tactical officer, sat in a chair surrounded by monitors. He spun around. "Got it, Captain. The Xyloff Queen carrier is moving to flank us. It is launching thousands of drones." "Let them come," John said. "Charge the main railguns. Use the high-explosive rounds this time. I want that carrier broken in half." "Aye, Captain," Tom said. He turned back to his screen and typed rapidly. Outside the ship, the 2 main railguns on the top of the Atlas began to hum. These were the biggest weapons the humans had. They were 2 kilometers long each. They used magnets to throw a shell the size of a bus. The Xyloff drones swarmed toward the Atlas like angry bees. The point defense guns on the human ship opened up. These were smaller, fast-firing guns that filled the space with hot lead. The drones exploded one by one, creating a cloud of fire around the human ship. But there were too many drones. Some got through and crashed into the hull. The ship shook and alarms rang out in the bridge. "Hull breach on deck 9, a crewman shouted. "Fire crews to the sector." "Ignore it," John ordered. "Keep the guns firing. Focus on the carrier." The Atlas took hit after hit. Its armor was blackened and scarred. Parts of the ship were burning in the vacuum of space. But the ship kept moving forward. It did not retreat. It did not slow down. "Railguns charged," Tom yelled. "Fire," John said. The sound of the guns firing shook the entire station unity, even from a distance. 2 massive shells streaked across the void. They moved so fast they were invisible to the naked eye. 1 second later, the Xyloff carrier simply ceased to exist. The first shell hit the front of the ship and tunneled deep into its core. The second shell hit the fuel tanks. The explosion was blinding. It ripped the giant alien ship apart. The shockwave destroyed the drones nearby and cleared a massive hole in the enemy formation. Back on the station, the aliens watched in stunned silence. The Ilari ambassador sat down in his chair, his legs weak. "They just destroyed a capital ship with 2 shots, Tylan said. "Our best ships would have needed 10 minutes of sustained laser fire to do that." General Mark let out a breath he did not know he was holding. "They are brutal. They are violent. But by the stars, they are good at this." Admiral Vance looked at Lisa. "Can we talk to them? Can we coordinate?" Lisa tried her console. "I am trying, sir, but their comms are full of noise. They are shouting a lot. And laughing." "Laughing?" Vance asked, confused. "Yes," Lisa said. "They are celebrating. They think this is fun." This terrified the Admiral more than the weapons. To fight a war with joy was something the civilized galaxy could not understand. The coalition fought because they had to. They fought to survive, and they mourned every loss. But these humans, they seemed to come alive in the chaos. Suddenly, a new alarm rang on the station. It was a proximity alarm. "Sir," Lisa shouted, "the Xyloth are retreating. The main fleet is breaking off." On the screen, the red dots turned around. They were running away. The Xyloth were not used to an enemy that could hurt them this badly. They were confused by the lack of energy shields and the overwhelming kinetic force. They needed to rethink their strategy. "They are running," Mark said with a grin. "We drove them back." "Do not celebrate yet," Vance warned. "They will be back, and now they know what the humans can do." Captain John's voice came over the loudspeaker again. He sounded bored. "This is Captain John of the Atlas. Enemy is fleeing. We are not pursuing. We need to repair our armor. We are taking up position around the station. You guys can come out now." The crew on the station looked at each other. They had been hiding behind the station's shields while the humans fought the battle alone. They felt a mix of relief and shame. "Should we send a repair team?" Tylan asked. "Their ships are damaged." "We should," Vance said. "And we should find out exactly who they are. They say they are from Earth. But where is that? And why are they so angry at the Xyloth?" General Mark walked to the window. He looked out at the human fleet. The ships were dark now. The firing had stopped. They floated in the void, looking battered and tough. Smoke drifted off their hulls, turning into ice crystals in the cold of space. They looked like warriors who had seen 1,000 battles. "I want to meet this Captain John," Mark said. "I want to shake his hand. And I want to make sure he never points those guns at us." The battle was over for now. The station was safe. But the feeling in the room had changed. The fear of the Xyloth was still there, but new curiosity was growing. The humans had arrived. They were loud, rude, heavily armored, and dangerous. They had saved the day, but the way they did it left everyone uneasy. As the repair shuttles launched from the station to tend to the human ships, Mark watched a group of human fighters dock. They moved with confidence that the galaxy had not seen in eons. He knew that the war was far from over, but for the first time, there was hope. It was a scary, violent hope, but it was hope nonetheless. "Prepare the reception room," Vance ordered, "but keep the guards armed, just in case." Lisa smiled at her screen. "I think they like us, sir. I just got a message from one of their pilots. It says, 'You're welcome.'" Vance shook his head. "They are certainly not like us. Let's hope that is a good thing." The galaxy had changed. The balance of power was shifting. And it all started with a few hundred ships from a place called Earth, fighting with big guns and thick metal. The fear of the Xyloth was being replaced by a legend of the crazy, dangerous apes who would punch a hole in the universe just to save a friend. The victory at the space station was a surprise to everyone, but the humans did not stop to celebrate for long. On the bridge of the Atlas, Captain John looked at the star map. The red dots of the Xyloth fleet were running away, but they were not leaving the galaxy. They were just regrouping. "Sir," Tom said from his tactical seat, "the enemy is falling back to the Viridia system. They have a ground base on the 4th moon there. It is a major resource hub for them." John nodded. "Good. That means we know where they are." Admiral Vance appeared on the communication screen. He looked nervous. "Captain John, please do not pursue. The Viridia moon is heavily fortified. It is a death trap. Our best ground troops tried to land there months ago, and they were all killed. We should wait here and reinforce our defenses." John looked at the Admiral with a calm face. "With respect, Admiral, waiting is what got you into this mess. We don't wait. We advance. If they have a base there, we're going to take it. But you cannot defeat them on the ground," Vance argued. "The Xyloth are terrifying in close combat. They are stronger and faster than any soldier." John smiled slightly. "We will see about that. We are sending our Marines. Have your ground commanders coordinate with us." Before Vance could say no, John cut the connection. He turned to his crew. "Prepare the drop ships. Tell Commander David to get his team ready. We are going hunting." In the cargo bay of the Atlas, the mood was intense but focused. Commander David stood in front of the squad. He was a tall man with a scar on his cheek. He wore heavy green armor that looked like it was made of solid slabs of steel. It was bulky and noisy, but it could stop a claw from tearing through a man's chest. Behind him stood Mike, Chris, and Sam. They were checking their weapons. These were not laser rifles. They were heavy machine guns that fired large bullets very fast. "Listen up," David said, his voice booming inside his helmet. "The aliens are scared of this moon. They say the bugs are too strong down there. But we are human. We have fought things that would make these Xyloth wet themselves. We go in, we kill the enemy, and we take the base. Do not hesitate. If it moves, shoot it." "Aura!" the squad shouted in unison. The bay doors opened, and the drop ships flew out into space. They were big, bulky boxes with engines on the back. They looked clumsy compared to the sleek alien transports, but they were heavily armored. They were called coffins by the human soldiers, but they loved them. The drop ships roared toward the fourth moon of Iridia. The surface of the moon was gray and rocky, dotted with strange purple plants and dark alien structures. The Xyloth had built tall, spiky towers that looked like termite mounds made of black metal. "Anti-aircraft fire incoming!" the pilot shouted over the radio. Green plasma beams shot up from the ground. They hit the side of David's ship. The ship shook violently, and sparks flew inside the cabin. "Hold on," Mike yelled, gripping his seat. The ship's thick armor took the hits. It did not explode. It just kept flying. The pilot did not try to dodge smoothly. He just pointed the nose down and flew faster. "We are coming in hot," the pilot yelled. "Brace for impact." The ship hit the ground with a tremendous crash. The landing gear snapped, and the ship skidded across the rocks, throwing up dust and stones. It finally stopped a few hundred meters from the main alien tower. The back ramp of the ship fell open with a loud clang. David was the first one out. He ran down the ramp, his heavy boots thumping on the alien soil. "Go! Go! Go!" he shouted. The squad spread out. Almost immediately, Xyloth warriors came out from behind the rocks. They were tall, standing on two legs, with four arms that held sharp blades. They hissed and screeched, charging at the humans. The coalition soldiers usually ran when they saw this charge, but the humans stood their ground. "Open fire," David commanded. The sound of the human weapons was deafening. Thump, 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 thump. The heavy machine gun spat out a stream of glowing hot metal. The bullets hit the leading Xyloth warriors. The alien armor, which was strong enough to stop laser bolts, shattered under the kinetic impact. The bullets tore through the creatures, knocking them backward. Mike laughed as he fired. "Look at them. They are soft." One Xyloth got close to Chris. It swung its sharp claws. Chris didn't dodge. He raised his armored arm and blocked the claw. Sparks flew, but the armor held. Then Chris aimed his shotgun at the creature's face and pulled the trigger. The blast blew the alien backwards. "Too slow," Chris yelled. The squad moved forward like a slow, unstoppable wave. They did not use fancy tactics. They just used overwhelming firepower. If there was cover, they blew it up. If there was an enemy, they shot it until it stopped moving. On the bridge of the Atlas, Captain John watched the video feed from David's helmet. It was shaky and violent. He saw the aliens die. He saw the ruthless efficiency of his men. General Mark was watching from the station Unity. He could not believe what he was seeing. "Are you seeing this?" Mark asked Vance. "They are fighting the Xyloth in hand-to-hand combat, and they are winning." Vance looked pale. "They are so violent. Look at the way they move. They don't care about their own safety. They just push forward." "It is not just that," Mark said. "They are enjoying it. That soldier, Mike, he was laughing while he killed those things. The Xyloth have been the nightmare of the galaxy for centuries. But to these humans, the Xyloth are just targets." Back on the moon, David's squad reached the entrance of the main tower. The door was a thick organic membrane that looked like skin. "Blow it," David ordered. Sam stepped forward with a backpack full of explosives. He slapped a charge on the door and ran back. Fire in the hole. The explosion blew the door into pieces. Inside the tower, hundreds of Xyloth were waiting. They swarmed out like angry ants. "Reload," David shouted. "Don't let them push us back." The squad ducked behind chunks of debris. The aliens fired plasma bolts, chipping away at the human cover. "I need more ammo," Mike yelled. His gun was smoking. "Here." Chris tossed him a new belt of bullets. The humans poured so much lead into the hallway that the floor became covered in empty shell casings. The smell of gunpowder and ozone filled the air. It was a dirty, messy fight. There was no honor in it. It was just survival. David switched on his plasma cutter. It was a tool used for welding, but he used it like a sword. An Xyloth warrior lunged at him. David sidestepped and sliced the creature's leg off. Then he shot it in the head. "Move up," David yelled. "We aren't stopping until we kill the commander of this base." They fought their way up the tower levels. Room by room, they cleared the building. The aliens were terrified. They had never fought an enemy that could bleed and keep fighting. The humans took wounds, but they didn't stop. Mike got a cut on his arm, but he just bandaged it and kept shooting. Sam's armor was dented, but he kept walking. Finally, they reached the top floor. There, a massive Xyloth commander sat. It was twice the size of the others. It roared and charged at David. The squad opened fire all at once. The big alien stumbled as bullets hammered its chest, but it kept coming. It was incredibly tough. "Focus fire," David screamed. They all aimed at the creature's head. The concentrated gunfire blew through the hard shell. The commander fell dead just a few feet from David. David stood over the body, breathing hard. He looked around the room. His squad was covered in dirt and alien blood, but they were all standing. "Base secured," David said into his radio. "Tell the captain to send the cleaners. We're done here." On the station Unity, the alien leaders sat in silence. The battle on the moon was over. The humans had won. They had done in 1 hour what the Coalition could not do in a year. Mark looked at the screen where the humans were celebrating. They were high-fiving and checking their weapons, looking happy. "We have to be careful," Mark said quietly. "They saved the moon. But look at them. They are very good at killing. If they ever turn on us, I don't think our shields will stop them." The fear in the galaxy was shifting. It was no longer just fear of the Xyloth. It was a new fear. A fear of the creatures called humans. They looked like normal people, but when they fought, they became monsters. And now, everyone knew that the monsters were on their side. For now, Captain John smiled as he received the report. "Good job, David. Get back to the ship. We have a lot more work to do." The humans were not tired. They were just getting started. The galaxy had never seen a war like this before, and the Xyloth had no idea what was coming next. The victory on the moon of Iridia was a major shock to the Xyloth. They had lost a strong base and many warriors. But the insectoid enemy was not defeated. They were angry. The Xyloth Queen, the mastermind of the Hive, ordered a retreat. They pulled all their ships back into a dark region of space called the Dark Nebula. The Dark Nebula was a place that most space pilots avoided. It was full of thick gas clouds, magnetic storms, and floating rocks. Sensors and radar did not work well there. It was a perfect place to hide. On the Coalition Station Unity, the mood was confused. The leaders were happy that the Xyloth were leaving, but they were worried about where they were going. Admiral Vance stood in front of the main star map. He pointed a shaking finger at the dark area on the screen. "They are running into the nebula," he said. "We cannot follow them there. The interference is too strong. Our ships would crash into rocks or get lost." General Mark stood next to him. He looked tired but determined. "If we let them hide there, they will just rebuild. They will come back stronger in a few months. We have to finish them now." "We cannot fight in there, Mark." Vance insisted. "It is suicide. We will be blind." Just then, the communication screen lit up. Captain John appeared. He was sitting on the bridge of the Atlas, drinking a cup of hot coffee. He looked calm. "We are going in," John said simply. Vance's eyes went wide. "Captain, you cannot. The nebula is dangerous. You will lose your ships." "We are not going to lose," John said. "We have been studying the map. We know where they are going. They are running to their nest. That is where the Queen is. If we kill the Queen, the war ends." "But your sensors won't work," Lisa said from her station. She was listening in. You will be flying blind. How will you target the enemy? John smiled. We don't need fancy sensors to find a target that big. We will use old-fashioned methods. And we don't need to see them to shoot them. We are going to flush them out. This is madness, the Ilari ambassador, Tylan, whispered. He will get everyone killed. Let them go, Mark said, though his voice was quiet. It is our only chance. The human fleet, now joined by a few more ships that had arrived from Earth, turned toward the dark clouds. The ships were scarred from the previous battles, but the repair crews had fixed the worst holes. The big railguns were loaded and ready. Entering the nebula in 3 minutes, Tom announced on the Atlas, "Shields are up. We are switching to manual targeting." "Good," John said. "Everyone stay sharp. It's going to be dark." The fleet flew into the clouds. Instantly, the view from the windows turned black. Lightning flashed in the gas clouds, lighting up the metal hulls of the ships. The radar screens became static. They were flying blind. Suddenly, the ship shook. A loud crash echoed through the hull. "We hit debris," Tom yelled. "Hull integrity at 90%. "Keep going," John ordered. "Steady course." They flew deeper into the darkness. The tension on the bridge was high. Everyone knew the enemy was hiding in the fog, waiting to strike. "Sir," Mike said. He was manning the sonar station, which used sound waves instead of light. "I hear something. Lots of clicking sounds. All around us." "Battle stations," John said. "They are here." Without warning, the darkness lit up with green fire. The Xyloth fleet had been hiding in the gas clouds, silent and invisible. Now, they ambushed the humans. Thousands of plasma beams shot out from the fog, striking the human ships. The Atlas shook violently. Alarm screamed. "Port side is taking heavy damage," a crewman shouted. "We have fires on decks 3 through 6. John grabbed the railing of the bridge to steady himself. "Hold the line. Don't break formation." The problem was without sensors, they could not aim their railguns accurately. They were firing at flashes of light in the dark, hoping to hit something. The Xyloth were swarming them, biting at their armor, disappearing back into fog. "We are sitting ducks here," Tom yelled. "We can't lock onto them." John looked at the swirling clouds. He knew he had to do something risky. He had to level the playing field. "Tom," John said, "are the missiles ready?" "Yes, Captain, but we can't lock targets." "We don't need targets," John said grimly. "We just need a direction." John turned to the fleet communication channel. "All ships, listen to me. Switch your warheads to the Hydra setting. Set timers for 10 seconds. Fire on my mark. We are going to turn this entire sector into a fireball." The crew looked at him in shock. He was going to fire nuclear missiles blindly. They would destroy everything in a wide radius, including potentially human ships that were close by. It was a desperate move. "Aye, Captain," Tom said. He trusted John. "Fire," John shouted. The hatches opened, and hundreds of missiles flew out into the dark. They sped away from the ships, their engines glowing. 10 seconds later, they detonated. The nebula turned from black to white. Massive nuclear explosions lit up the clouds. The shock waves pushed the gas away, clearing the fog for a moment. The fireball consumed the hidden Xyloth ships. The aliens had been hiding close to strike, but now they were caught in the blast. The explosions were so bright that the crew had to wear special glasses to look at the screens. The heat washed over the human ships, but their thick armor protected them. Direct hits on multiple contacts. Mike shouted over the noise. "I see them. They are burning." The trap had failed. The Xyloth had thought the humans would be helpless in the dark, but they had brought their own light. A terrible, destructive light. "Push forward." John ordered. "The way is clear. Find the Queen." The fleet surged ahead, passing the burning wreckage of the enemy. They finally broke through the thickest part of the nebula. In the center of the clearing sat a massive, organic structure. It looked like a giant, pulsing egg attached to an asteroid. This was a hive. The Queen was inside. "That's it," John said. "That is the heart of the swarm." The hive began to move. It opened huge pores and launched thousands of smaller ships to defend itself. "All batteries, target the hive." John yelled, "Fire everything!" The human fleet unleashed their full power. The railguns roared, sending massive slugs crashing into the organic armor of the hive. The missiles launched again, this time targeting the structure directly. The hive screamed. It was a psychic sound that made everyone on the ship shiver. The Xyloth were fighting with desperation, ramming into the human ships, exploding themselves to stop the advance. The Atlas took a severe hit to the engine room. The lights flickered and died. Emergency red lights came on. Engine failure. Tom reported, "We are losing power." "Don't stop," John shouted. "Use the momentum. We are close enough." The Atlas drifted forward, its guns still firing. On the bridge, sparks rained down from the ceiling. The ship was falling apart, but the crew kept firing. "We need to kill the Queen now," John said. "Prepare the nuke. The big one. We have to launch it from here?" Tom asked. "Yes," John said. "Set the timer for 5 seconds. We're going to shoot it right down their throat." The crew worked frantically. They loaded the largest nuclear weapon they had into the forward launcher. The ship shook as more impacts landed. Target locked. Tom yelled, "Firing!" The missile shot out of the damaged Atlas. It flew straight toward the hive. The Xyloth tried to shoot it down, but the missile was too fast. It crashed into the side of the hive and burrowed deep inside the organic flesh. 5 seconds later, a sun was born inside the nebula. The explosion was silent in the vacuum of space, but the visual was terrifying. The hive ripped apart. The Queen was vaporized instantly. The shockwave blew away the remaining gas clouds, clearing the entire sector. On the bridge of the Atlas, the crew watched the destruction. The enemy ships stopped moving. Without the Queen to control them, the hive mind broke. The Xyloth ships floated dead in the water. John leaned back in his chair. He was bruised and bleeding from a cut on his forehead, but he was alive. "Cease fire," he whispered. "It's over." Back on the station Unity, the aliens watched the silent feed. The dark nebula was gone. In its place was a cloud of expanding gas and debris. The impossible had happened. The humans had gone into the dark and killed the monster. General Mark let out a long breath. He looked at Vance. "They did it," Mark said. "They actually did it." Vance looked at the screen with a mix of relief and horror. "Yes, but look at the cost. Look at what they were willing to do to win. They destroyed an entire sector of space just to kill one enemy." Mark nodded slowly. "They saved us, Admiral, but I fear that we have invited a lion into our house to eat the wolves. Now we must hope the lion does not get hungry again." The human fleet began the long journey back, battered but victorious. The galaxy was safe from the Xyloth, but the fear in the hearts of the aliens had only just begun to take root. The war was over, but the age of humanity had just arrived. The silence that followed the explosion in the dark nebula was heavier than the noise of the battle. For days, the galaxy held its breath. The Xyloth fleet, which had been the terror of the stars for 3 centuries, was drifting dead in space. Without the Queen to control their minds, the insectoid warriors had shut down. Their ships floated like rocks in the void, and the ground forces on the conquered planets simply fell over and went to sleep. On the Coalition Station Unity, the mood was strange. There were no loud celebrations. The aliens walked through the corridors quietly, looking at each other with wide eyes. They were alive. They were safe. But they were also deeply afraid. The human fleet had returned. They limped back from the nebula, their ships smoking and broken. The big flagship, the Atlas, looked terrible. Its hull was blackened by fire. Huge chunks of metal were missing, and one of its main engines was dead. But it was still flying. It moved like a tired beast that refused to lie down. Admiral Vance stood on the docking platform, waiting for the humans to arrive. He had his hands behind his back to stop them from shaking. Next to him was General Mark and Ilari Ambassador Tylan. They wore their finest dress uniforms, but they felt small in front of the damaged human ships. The airlock doors of the Atlas hissed open. Steam escaped into the docking bay. Captain John walked out first. He did not wear a helmet. His face was dirty, and he had a white bandage on his forehead. He walked with a slight limp, but his posture was straight. Behind him came Commander David and the rest of the ground crew. They looked rough. Their armor was scratched and dented, and they smelled of smoke and sweat. They did not walk with the graceful steps of the Ilari or the heavy stomp of the Vorg. They walked with a loose, confident swing. Captain John stopped in front of Admiral Vance. He did not salute. He just looked the Admiral in the eye. "The Xyloth Queen is dead," John said. His voice was raspy from shouting orders during the battle. "The hive mind is gone. Your galaxy is safe." Vance cleared his throat. We saw the explosion, Captain. It was very powerful. You saved us all. The Coalition will forever be in your debt." John nodded slightly. "We did what we came to do. The bugs are gone. Now we need to fix our ships." "Of course," Vance said quickly. "We have repair crews standing by, and we have prepared a feast in your honor. The leaders of every planet want to meet you." John looked at his men, then back at Vance. "We will eat, but we don't need a feast. We just need food and fuel. And then we need to talk about the future." As the humans were led to the reception hall, the aliens on the station watched them from the shadows. The way the humans looked at their surroundings made the aliens nervous. The humans did not look at the beautiful art or the fancy technology with awe. They looked at it analytically, as if they were figuring out how to break it or how to use it in the fight. They touched the walls, checking the material. They looked at the ceiling, checking the exits. In the reception hall, the leaders of the Coalition sat around a large table. The humans sat on the other side. The contrast was striking. The aliens were elegant, wearing colorful robes and jewelry. The humans wore their dirty, combat-stained uniforms. They ate with simple intensity, focusing on the food rather than the conversation. Tylan, the Ilari ambassador, stood up to speak. He held a glass of golden liquid. "Today, we celebrate a great victory. We honor the warriors from Earth who came from the stars to save us. You are brave heroes. Your names will be written in our histories." The humans at the table shifted uncomfortably. Commander David put down his fork. He looked at Tylan. "We aren't heroes," David said. His voice was flat. "We just did a job you guys couldn't do." The room went quiet. Tylan looked shocked. I assure you, we fought with honor. We did our best." "Your best wasn't good enough," David said. He didn't say it to be mean. He was just stating a fact. "You fought with rules and treaties. The Xyloth don't care about rules. To beat a monster, you have to be willing to be a monster." General Mark leaned forward. "What do you mean by that?" "Mike," the heavy gunner laughed quietly. "Look at the battle in the nebula. You guys were scared to go in because your sensors wouldn't work. You were scared of the dark. We weren't scared. We just turned on the lights with a bunch of nukes. We burned the whole place down to get one bug." Vance looked pale. But the destruction, the loss of life in that sector, "We won," John said, cutting him off. "That is what matters. We are alive. They are dead. That is the only math that matters to us." The alien leaders looked at each other. They realized that these humans were very different from them. The Coalition valued safety, caution, and preservation. The humans valued survival at any cost. They were willing to destroy themselves just to destroy the enemy. "We are concerned," Tylan said slowly. "Your methods, they are forbidden by our laws. Nuclear weapons in space, kinetic bombardment, total warfare. These things are dangerous." John stood up. The room went silent again. He was a tall man, and his presence filled the room. "We don't care about your laws. Our laws are simple. Don't mess with Earth, and don't mess with our friends. You wanted our help, and we gave it. But don't think you can lecture us on how to fight. We have been fighting on our own planet for thousands of years. We know we're better than anyone." Lisa, who was standing at the back of the room, felt a chill run down her spine. She realized that the power in the galaxy had shifted completely. Before, the Coalition was the authority. Now, the humans were the authority. The aliens were weak, and the humans were strong. "We understand," Vance said, his voice humble. "We will not question your methods. We are just grateful." "Good," John said. "Now, let's talk about why we are really staying." "Staying?" Mark asked. "We thought you would go back to Earth now that the war is over. John looked at Mark with a cold stare. Earth is full. We have too many people and not enough space. We came here because we needed resources. We fought for you, so we expect payment. We want the rights to the empty systems in this sector. We want the mining rights to the asteroid belts. And we want a say in how this coalition is run. The aliens gasped. It was a demand, a bold, arrogant demand. They were asking for land and power. You cannot just claim territory, Tylan protested weakly. There are treaties. The old treaties are dead, John said. The Xyloth broke them. We saved you. We claim the spoils of war. You can give us what we want, and we will be your best friends. We will protect you from anyone else who tries to attack. Or you can say no. We can pack up and leave. But remember, next time the bugs come or someone worse comes, we won't be here to help. The threat was clear. It was not a threat of violence against the coalition, but a threat of abandonment. The aliens knew they could not survive on their own. They needed the monsters. Vance looked at the other leaders. They all nodded slowly. They had no choice. We agreed to your terms, Vance said. You can have the systems. You can have a seat on the council. John sat back down and picked up his glass of water. Good. Then we have a deal. The meeting ended shortly after. The humans left the hall and went back to their ships to sleep. The alien leaders stayed in the room, sitting in the dark. They are terrifying, Tylan whispered. They saved us, but they're going to change everything. Our way of life, it cannot survive alongside people like that. General Mark looked out the window at the human ships. Repair drones were swarming around the Atlas, fixing holes. He thought about the weapons they had, the attitude they had, and the simple way they looked at the universe. Maybe our way of life deserves to change, Mark said quietly. We were losing. We were dying. They brought us life. Yes, they are scary. Yes, they are dangerous. But I would rather live in a galaxy with scary humans than a galaxy ruled by the Xyloth. Lisa walked over to the window, standing next to Mark. She watched the ships. Do you think they will be good neighbors, General? Mark sighed. I don't know, Lisa. They're like a sleeping tiger. If we leave them alone, they might sleep peacefully. But if we poke them, they will eat us alive. We just have to be very, very careful. The war was over. The fear of the Xyloth was gone. But a new era had begun. An era where humanity was the strongest force in the galaxy. The stars were no longer just a place of exploration and peace. They were a playground for the masters of war. And the masters had arrived. As the station Unity rotated slowly in the starlight, the human ships sat docked to it like heavy anchors. They were ugly, scarred, and powerful. The galaxy looked at them with fear, with respect, and with wonder. The story of humanity was just starting, and everyone knew it would be a loud, violent, and unforgettable story.